Welcome to the Home Downsizing Show. My name is Ben Souchek, your host and the owner and founder of Home Downsizing Solutions. With the Home Downsizing Show, I want to provide you the information and resources to make the downsizing of your house stress and hassle-free. So sit back and enjoy the show. Thank you for joining us. Hello, and welcome to this week's edition of the Home Downsizing Show. This is Ben Souchek, the owner and founder of Home Downsizing Solutions and the author of Home Downsizing Secrets. And this week, I'd like to have a quick show in regards to timing if you are considering downsizing in the future. I know that a lot of people, and probably myself included, want to stay in their house as long as possible. But recently, I've had a few calls from homeowners that have owned their house for literally decades, 20, 30 plus years, and are thinking that maybe having something smaller to live in, that they don't have to take care of lawns or yards, or in a lot of areas of the country, snow removal in the wintertime, and not to even mention home maintenance for interior and exterior maintenance and all the potential issues there to worry about. But they really don't want to move into quote-unquote senior living. I had a call just this past week from an individual that, again, has owned her house for 30 plus years. It was kind of funny in that she said, I'm 80 plus years old, but I don't consider myself old, and I really don't want to move into quote-unquote senior living and be in an apartment that is in a building with a bunch of other people. But I'd like to be in a ranch townhouse type of an environment with a garage and my own space, and just something smaller that's easier to take care of. And I want to rent, not buy something. And again, this is becoming kind of a more and more common occurrence that I get phone calls from. And it's understandable. A person likes their own space, so they don't want to be in an apartment building with a bunch of other people. I don't think any of us probably want to consider ourselves as old. And I've been told before that a lot of people in the age demographic really don't like being considered or called a senior. And so I try and be mindful of that, because even though at my age, at 55, I'm getting senior cards, senior group cards, and at first when I received them, which has been a few years ago already, I was a little taken back by the fact that somebody would think that as a 50-year-old that I was a senior or getting close to being a senior. And so I can identify with that issue, no matter whether you're in your 50s or whether you're in your 80s like this lady is, and doing well on her own and not needing assistance with like assisted living or something like that would be. So this is a common occurrence, wanting to be independent, wanting to be in a non-apartment apartment that you can kind of call your own or consider your own without having residents above or below you, and not having to worry about home ownership. And so what I think I'm going to try and compile, at least for my local markets, is a list of apartment communities that would fit the bill for this. That would be a ranch townhouses that are on one floor, and that would be easier to navigate for most people. So if you have questions about that, or this would be of interest to you, just call my office, and I'll give you that number at the end of this podcast, and we'd be happy to get that to you. If you're in an area where you would like this list created, or are looking for similar housing, let me know too, and I will see what I can do to create resources for you, or find resources for you that would accommodate this for you. And my primary reason for creating the show this week, or that I wanted to discuss on this week's show, is timing. Whether it was when I called a community that I knew of in Omaha that had these type of arrangements, or these types of housing. We had purchased a house from another lady a few years ago that, same situation, she wanted to move into a ranch townhouse, but didn't want to have any of the ownership responsibilities. And so she moved to a specific community in Omaha that had this type of housing. And so I went back to this same community and asked them about their availability, and they mentioned that their waiting list was over a year long. And so it's kind of presents a problem for a person that wants to get into this type of housing, but there just is none available. There was a quote-unquote senior community that also have somewhat standalone houses, ranch townhouses, as part of their community, and they likewise were well over 1 year waiting list. And so my point, I guess, that to convey here on this week's show is that if you have any indication or any interest in downsizing, selling a house and downsizing in the next 2 or 3 years, it really would behoove yourself to start at least doing some research on the availability of housing, the housing types, and the types of housing that you would like to transition to at some point, so that you maybe can get your name on a list, a waiting list, and that way you would have the option in a year or two to be able to make that transition to a different apartment, or apartment that you would like to get into, instead of potentially at some point, if you are, because of health reasons, forced to make a move, maybe you're going to be forced to get into a housing situation that you really don't want to be in. And so I guess I would just encourage you, if you are considering it all in moving or transitioning to a different, smaller home, apartment, or apartment community in the next few years, that it might be better to start looking into this sooner rather than later. If there's anything that I, or the resources that I'm aware of, can help you with, we would be happy to do that as well. One of the other things that I found in this is there are services. I'll step back a little bit here. Looking for an apartment that is not quote-unquote senior living is kind of a challenge in getting resources to assist you in finding communities or apartment communities. In that, like this lady this past week was mentioning, she had spoke to some real estate agents, or a few real estate agents, but they wanted to sell her smaller houses, smaller ranch houses. And in this situation, she did not want to buy a house again. She did not want the responsibilities of owning a house. And so the real estate agents were not being of much help to her. On the other option is what are called senior placement agents. And senior placement agents are kind of like real estate agents, except that find senior living arrangements. But these are typically people that would find apartments in independent living communities, assisted living communities, or other types of senior care where they would typically be compensated by the community. And so some of them are good in that they will still offer ideas, or if they know of any other place that might have apartments like this. But often some of them just are not, they just don't know about a regular apartment community that might have housing like this. And so it can be a challenge to find these types of communities without a lot of digging. And so if you have questions about finding a apartment housing, or housing that is on one level somewhat detached, or just a duplex, so that you don't feel that you're in a building with a bunch of other people, let us know, and my office would be happy to attempt to help you out and to try and locate resources that might be able to be valuable to you to find the housing that you would like to get into. So with that, again, the main point of this week's show is to just encourage you that if you think you might be making a transition to a smaller home, apartment, or apartment community in the next 2 or 3 years, it's really best to start planning ahead. If you don't need it, that's great, but at least if you do need it or do want it later on, you would have your name on a waiting list, you would know what's available, and you can make that transition without having to then worry about when is something going to become available for you. So again, if you have questions, call my office, toll free, 855-291-5005. That's toll free 855-291-5005. You can go to our website at homedownsizing.com. And if you would like a free copy of our book, Home Downsizing Secrets, you can certainly go to homedownsizing-secrets.com or just call my office. One other resources that we are working on, and I would like some feedback as far as what you would find valuable in this, is a home downsizing workbook or planning guide. And this is hopefully meant to provide you a way to document and write down, take notes on some of the aspects of what's going to be needed to make the transition to a smaller home, apartment, or apartment community. And so I'm working on the home downsizing workbook right now. And if you have ideas on what you would like incorporated into that, I'm certainly looking for ideas and what you would find of value in that type of workbook or planning guide. Again, our office, toll free 855-291-5005. And if we can be of any assistance, please give us a call. Thank you for listening, and have a great week. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Home Downsizing Show. For additional information and resources on home downsizing, just go to homedownsizing-blueprint.com. That's homedownsizing-blueprint.com. Or if you're ready to sell your house and downsize, just go to homedownsizing-solutions.com. That's homedownsizing-solutions.com. And if you have ideas to improve our show, or topics that you'd like us to cover, or have any questions that we can answer, just call our office, toll free, 855-291-5005. That's 855-291-5005. Thank you.